Hi, I'm Star Trek prop and costume collector and researcher Don Hillenbrand, known online as Wrath of Don. And I'm here to talk a little bit more about the original series phaser and communicator that's heading for auction. In my earlier video, I said I would be sharing more information about how we know what we know. How do we know that these two pieces are authentic and not just very accurate looking copies? And this is a key thing about Star Trek original series props, because there are so many replicas and copies and fakes out there that have been produced over the years, going back to the 70s. And for a long time, people were able to get away with passing off replicas as originals. And that is the crux of the matter. How do we know if it's real or if it's fake? Earlier this year, I was contacted by an old friend of mine about these pieces. His name is Jason DeBord, and though he is no longer with Julian's, at the time he was COO and executive director, and as such he was in charge of the Hollywood auction business. So I would hear from Jason every once in a while about Star Trek stuff that he would maybe have a question about, that sort of thing. And if it was an original series piece, Jason, he'd been around a long time, right? So he understood that it was unlikely to be the real thing. Because of that, the message he sent me started with, "Hey Don, I know that this isn't real stuff, but what can you tell me about it?" And what I then saw were photos of the communicator and phaser that I had already seen when the owner previously contacted me directly for some information. So Jason was very surprised when I responded with the fact that I felt very strongly that these were probably real and would probably stand up to a hands-on authentication. Something that I had literally never said to him before. So now dealing with these pieces with Jason, it really brought things full circle with he and I, because we had known each other for 15 years. And when we met online, it was through his blog called The Original Prop Blog. And as you can tell by the name, he writes about original props and costumes. And while he's not a Star Trek collector in any way, he would occasionally write about Star Trek if there was something that interested him. And one of those stories made a huge impression on me. This was back in 2008, and Jason had written a story about how many original series replica props, specifically communicators, phasers, and tricorders, had been sold as real production pieces over the years. And he proceeded to show an archive that he had created of all of these auctions going back to the early 90s. He had found example after example of these auctions, and sometimes it would be one piece, sometimes two, or sometimes all three. And you could still find this, by the way, at his blog, originalprop.com. Just search for Star Trek Archive. But as I was reading that story, I realized that while most of them were obviously fake, some of the pieces were actually real, I thought. There were things there from John Dwyer, who worked on the show. There were things there from the great Matt Jeffries, designer of the original Enterprise. And I'm sure those things would have been gold. But the vast majority of them were simply replicas being passed off as real. And at the time, I'd only been collecting maybe 3 or 4 years, but I had come to understand that there were a lot of shady characters out there and that you needed to really question everything. But I had had no idea that so many replica pieces had been sold as original over the years. It was a real eye-opener, and this article by Jason actually helped spur me on to think about writing about Star Trek props and costumes that interested me. And it really helped me in sorting through my own thinking about the way to approach collecting itself. And so now we flash forward to the present, and there we were discussing two potentially authentic pieces. Now, Jason and I have always had the same sort of approach. We want to know the truth, period. Just give us the facts. And we both feel that it is right and proper to ask the basic question, how do you know it's real? And for what it's worth, those that react negatively to that question are the people that you should be very suspicious about. Because if you are telling the truth about a thing, then then you genuinely want them to know how you know, because it's a great story and it's exciting to tell it and you want the world to know this truth. So when people don't actually want to explain themselves, you should be very careful. But the bottom line is question everything, including me. So with these two pieces, there's two aspects of authenticating them: the inside and the outside. First of all, the most obvious thing is, what do they look like on the outside? What do the pieces and parts that we can see look like? Are they consistent to everything that is already known? Are they the right shape? Are they the right color? Are they the right position? Are the things the right size? Do they have the right patina or finish? And all of these things have to go into evaluating these pieces. All of those details have to be consistent with what is absolutely known and provable. But beyond that analysis, there is another incredibly helpful tool that is rarely achievable, but is incredibly powerful when it can be achieved, and that is screen matching. Now, screen matching asks a basic question. Can we find this specific piece in a specific scene, in a specific episode? We do this by finding flaws like chipped paint or scratches or dents or smudges, anything that is of an organic nature that would have happened as a piece is used in production. They get banged around, they get scuffed, and they get repainted. All those things help establish a fingerprint, a set of details that is unique to that piece alone. No two pieces will have the same dents, the same scratches, the same imperfections. And so we can find some of those things on screen. If we can find some of those things on screen, on a piece, that we can see clearly, well, then that's the Holy Grail. Unfortunately, that is rarely possible with Star Trek pieces or any piece, because they're hardly ever seen in close-up. And it is only in close-up that we can get definitive information that lets us make a specific screen match. It's also important to mention the thing that makes screen matching possible, and that is Blu-ray. Before Blu-ray, you had the original VHS release of Star Trek, which was, very low res, and that meant all the details were fuzzy at best. When the DVDs came out, there was a distinct improvement. Things were clearer, but still not as perfect as you would see on actual film. But then along comes Blu-ray, and boy, it changed everything. Paramount went back to the original film and scanned it in ultra-high res. The result is that you can see everything that was on the film now captured in digital form. It was a game changer. Suddenly, we could see details that had been physically impossible to see for 50 years. And it is in those details that make screen matching possible. But even with Blu-ray, in most cases, pieces cannot be screen matched because they never get a close-up. But amazingly, that limitation is not an issue here, because these two pieces are astonishingly used in multiple scenes in close-up. There is no other phaser. There is no other communicator that is used in this way. The fact that one of them would fall into this category is amazing. That both of them fall into this is a 1,000,000 to 1 shot, and it's astonishing. When we look at the various screenshots of the phaser, we can definitively see specific details that give us a consistent screen match across different scenes. That's as good as it gets. With the communicator, we have the single best close-up of a communicator in use, as well as a great shot of it closed, where we can see the unique detail of the solder on the antenna, along with a perfect match to the perforated holes. Again, this is as good as it gets. So that's the exterior analysis in a nutshell, and how it contributes to an overall authentication. In a future video, I'll be talking about the incredible interior and how that has to stand on its own as well. So when we take the two aspects of both pieces the exterior with its screen matchable unique details, and the interior with its matchable mechanical details, we can say definitively that the pieces are authentic. Now, I want to stress that there will never be examples of these two pieces that are as screen matchable as these, because no other pieces are ever shown in the same way these are. So, bottom line, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So, I'd like to give my thanks to Jason DeBord for bringing me into this project to begin with, and I am eternally grateful to him. My thanks also to John Long, who did an amazing restoration on both pieces. Any Star Trek collector would be ecstatic to have either of these pieces in their collections. It was an honor for me to have a small part in bringing them to the world. So, it's on to the auction. Let's see what happens. And as always, until next time, live long and prosper. Thanks for watching.